I'm Bryce Ducey, joining you inside the Nebraska Soybean War Studios. We check in with Jeff Peterson, the president of Heartland Farm Partners, as we like to do to start the week. But first, we like to go back and kind of recap what's been happening in the market and maybe glance a little bit into the future here. I think one word to describe the market lately has been volatile for corn and soybeans in particular, Jeff. And you were saying, that's something we can continue to expect throughout the next few weeks as well. Talk about what you've seen in the market so far and why you're saying that could stick around for a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely think we will see the volatility stick around, and the best way to kind of sum it up would be we've got tight enough stocks on both the old crop side on both corn and soybeans, and we've also got that showing up in South America also, some concerns on production down there coming on the corn side. And then as a result of that, it makes the stocks tight. But then you've got also the subsoil conditions in many areas that are just running a little tight. You take that across Iowa, parts of Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, into Nebraska, just to name a few. And then in addition to that, you've had some rainfall fall in certain areas. And then anybody who's watching that would ultimately say that, okay, so now prices can go lower, but the other areas did not get the rain. And you bring that all together, and you also take a fund position where they have been long the market. So you've got individuals stepping in and out of that market, and that's going to continue to give us that type of volatility going forward, Bryce.
In the past, Jeff, you and I have spent a lot of time talking about the importance of ethanol for the corn industry. And today we're going to dive a little bit deeper on the conversation about ethanol as well as biodiesel and talk about those renewable fuels. Of course, with the new administration, it seems like there's a focus on that. But there's been some news in the ethanol side of things that is kind of playing into question whether as much will be blended when it comes to renewable identification numbers, and kind of a complex topic. So let's talk about where we're at right now and why there's some questions in that space.
Well, I think what's very natural to see is if you step back and look at it, we had some stay-at-home orders that were in place because of COVID. As a result, the miles driven have been down, and so there hasn't been as much gasoline to blend into. And I think the whole talk that comes about is there's some of these obligated parties. That could be a refinery that's obligated to blend a certain amount of ethanol or biodiesel or renewable diesel into the fuel supply is what they're supposed to. And they're saying that they've been unfairly hurt because there's nothing that they could end up doing. And so what there's some discussions out there now saying, the administration needs to do something. And what they need to do is they need to do something to help them with the obligations that's been brought about, because basically what happens as a result of all this is if they don't blend in the necessary amount of ethanol and they don't blend in the amount of biodiesel, then they have to go out into the market and they have to buy RINs. And RINs would basically allow them to fulfill their obligation, and they would be able to have those RINs if they physically blended it, they would get them. But since they hadn't blended it, then they have had to go out and buy them, and the RIN values have went way up in the preceding weeks. But the concern is that now what may happen is the administration may come in and say, you know what, we're going to help out with that. Nothing's been officially said by the administration, but that's kind of our situation, what's going on, Bryce.
Let's switch over to the soybean side and focus again on the kind of this renewable energy conversation. What are you seeing there for soybean oil and things that are blended into soy biodiesel?
Yeah, there'd been a really strong drive and prices went up really high in the soybean oil. Now we have seen them fall back off. And there's been a big push out there, with the talk about, we've always had the biodiesel discussion out there, the methyl ester discussion. But there's been more discussion out there on the renewable diesel side, which, as we've talked in previous episodes, that we've got some differences. But the big thing on the renewable diesel is that it physically could be used, 100% right into the diesel supply, where the methyl ester has to be blended in, isn't able to use as high a blend. But as a result of that, we have seen those prices back off, and some of it comes back the same thing we're talking about on the ethanol side. It's a matter of, is there going to be some reprieves in that industry to kind of help things out? But it's still so important for also the soybean production side.
Of course, one of the important numbers you track for both corn and soybeans is exports. Give us an update of where things are looking right now. Does China continue to be a major player in this market?
Yeah, it's great to see. We watch the export inspections numbers; those come out on Mondays. We also watch the export sales numbers that come out on every Thursday, and then every morning there's also a recap of what there's been for sales that have been made on individual daily basis. And we're continuing to see some good purchases for what's going on. A few things we have to be aware of, though. I think on the soybean side, because Brazil got planted late, they're going to be shipping a little bit later into our crop year than what we normally expected. So we may not be able to pick up a lot of additional demand on the export side as we get out there in the latter part of July into August, but they are starting to buy bushels for new crop, the 2021 crop. And that 2021 crop starts on September 1st for corn and for soybeans. They've been a big buyer on the corn side, and now they're continuing to start do some additional purchases on the soybean side, so that'll be good to continue to watch.
Absolutely. Jeff, always appreciate your time. If somebody wants to follow you along on Twitter, you post a lot of great graphics and information. How can they find you on there?
Yeah, just go ahead and follow me at Jeff Peterson 01.
Jeff Peterson, the president of Heartland Farm Partner, joining us as we catch up on the markets here on a Monday morning. I'm Bryce Duskett, joining you on the Rural Radio Network.